Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you today as always, but before we get to that, Briahna would like to say some words. Go ahead.
Thank you, Robby. As many of you know, journalist Katie Halper was a guest host on Rising Monday before last, and as part of that role, she recorded a radar, a monologue. The radar addressed Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's statement that progressives cannot ignore the apartheid conditions many Palestinians live under and be progressive except for Palestine. Katie's radar critiqued the backlash to Tlaib and cited a former Secretary of State, chair of Israel's left political party, Israel's former education minister, former Israeli environment minister, and others who corroborated this view that Israel is an apartheid state. The decision was subsequently made by The Hill editor-in-chief Bob Cusack not to air her radar. Katie was then told that not only would she not be asked back to host, but that she would no longer be invited to do the regular guest spots she has been participating in for about 3 years now. I strongly disagree with how Katie was treated by The Hill. It seems obvious to me from her long tenure on the show that neither the quality of her analysis nor her presentation style has ever been seriously in question up until this point. You can find her radar, which she re-recorded with Breakthrough News, an independent media channel, on their YouTube page and judge for yourself. I, for one, find it difficult to believe that despite The Hill's representations, this is merely an editorial decision as opposed to an ideological one. As a former senior politics editor at The Intercept myself, I found the quality and accuracy of Katie's radar to be unimpeachable. And I believe losing Katie's commentary is a real loss for The Hill. Over the past week, I have struggled with whether to continue co-hosting this show. Robby and I talk about censorship and cancel culture frequently, and it feels hypocritical to talk about those subjects without applying the same scrutiny to our own show. However, I also believe strongly in this show's format. I deeply value cross-ideological discourse, and I think The Hill is one of the few corporate media spaces in which left voices are tolerated at all. The Hill has told me that the decision to end its relationship with Katie is an editorial decision about style and not ideology or substance, and that it would be happy for me to cover Israel-Palestine and any other newsworthy topic as I see fit. So I've decided to put that claim to the test. I will be staying with The Hill as long as I do not experience what I believe to be ideological censorship. I will continue to cover topics as I see fit, including the ongoing apartheid conditions in Israel. And if at any point I feel like I am being censored, I will end my relationship with The Hill. I will have more to say about this decision on my own show, Bad Faith Podcast, which you can find on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcast. And I'll be also hosting an opportunity for folks to call in and comment on my call-in show, The Debrief, which you can find with the call-in app later tonight. I appreciate The Hill giving me this opportunity to voice my view on this matter.
Look, I feel similarly to you. I didn't like how this was handled at all. I've not liked how some previous things have been handled. It was really hard parting ways with Kim Iverson, who I remain very strong friends with. Look, the audience knows we've had growing pains on this show following the departure of the longtime hosts, where we've had different people trying to figure out how we all get along and fit in with our various perspectives together. The Hill got acquired by a new parent company, so there have been uncomfortable times. I'm sure we've gotten things wrong sometimes or handled things not as we should, but I love this show. The viewers of this show have been so loyal to us, and as we try to figure things out, and they trust us. I hope that you continue to trust us to deliver unfiltered, unbiased, uncensored news. The only news show in existence right now that actually features debates and disagreements, and I think that format, like you, still has value, and we're going to keep at it until they pull the plugs on this thing,
or until we prove a contrary case and find that it's no longer a place for this kind of conducive rather to these kind of conversations. So.
Well, we'll find out. I'm confident that's not the case, but we'll see how it goes. All right, enough of that. Let's get to the actual news of the day. So despite pressure from the U.S., Wednesday, OPEC and non-OPEC partners agreed to deep output cuts, allegedly seeking to spur a recovery in crude oil prices. The decision will reduce production by 2 million barrels per day in November and represents a major reversal in production policy for the alliance. President Biden was caught by reporters when the news broke yesterday. Here's what he said.
Are you concerned about these cuts from OPEC?
The White House said in a statement that Biden was, quote, disappointed by the move to cut production. And according to CNN, the Biden administration launched a full-scale pressure campaign to dissuade Middle Eastern allies from cutting production, which obviously didn't work. The slash in production means gas prices will rise ahead of the midterms and give Republicans arguably the upper hand on inflation and economic messaging.
So obviously, Biden, and I don't blame him for not, he got ambushed interviewed there. Like, did you hear the thing? And he handled that just fine. I haven't heard about it yet. But it is obviously not good news given the importance of economic issues and gas prices and how gas prices affects everything else heading right into midterms.
Yeah, what's kind of so embarrassing about this is that the Biden administration, American politicians in general, are expressing frustration that Saudi Arabia, the kind of mobster they made this deal with, OPEC, this kind of explicitly price-fixing organization that they've been trying to assuage to operate in the benefit of the United States, isn't doing so. And the compromises that America has made on a foreign policy basis, on a kind of, it's the compromises it's made to its ability to take the high road and be the moral arbiter of the world. Not talking about Saudi Arabia's murder of Jamal Khashoggi, not talking about as forcefully as they have been, although there have been people on the left who do, the war in Yemen. All of those sacrifices have been for naught if at the end of the day, the bully that you tried to ally with is still not going to play ball with you. And so I find myself in a difficult position here where there's obviously downsides to how this is going to inure to the pain of the American public, but also this is kind of the issues with this kind of price-fixing scheme are coming to the fore in this moment because it was always a tenuous agreement to begin with.
Saudi Arabia engages in many of the same kind of unacceptable illiberal behaviors in terms of political repression or not extending fundamental rights to certain sectors of their population and cruel involvement in places like Yemen. Many of the things we're upset about that Russia is doing or that we've previously been upset about at Iran or Venezuela we're mad at you, we don't accept this, we hate you, you're great though, but there's no if you did a blind test you wouldn't be able to tell which policy is which because they similarly engage in things that are absolutely bad, but we don't have some united across the board opposition to. We, for sake of real politic, we can't, I guess. But
yes,
it just makes our commitment very confused.
Yeah, and this is the hypocrisy that I think the left has been pointing out for a really long time. When the left complains about sanctions on Venezuela, and we're told that it's because of, communism is so bad and socialism is so bad and you have to shut the country down, and then you turn around and see America lifting sanctions so that Chevron can produce more oil in Venezuela, it kind of explodes the whole project.
Right, but which is something I support. I oppose, we've had this discussion with a couple guests here.
Yeah.
I don't think a socialist communist model is a very good one for producing oil, but I would not sanction any of these countries, including Russia. Sanctions are a bad tool, I think, that tend to immiserate people in those countries without doing. It would be one thing, I guess, if you could point to some sterling track record of success for causing regime change, I suppose, is what they say is the goal. But that never works. We've embargoed Cuba for like 9,000 years, not actually 9,000 years, but it feels like it. It's for no effect whatsoever on their government.
Yeah.
But it does appear that Saudi Arabia is strengthening its ties with Russia, and OPEC's decision will help Russia shore up more income and hurt the U.S. But on the Venezuela front, you want to read this news, Briahna?
Yeah, meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Biden administration is preparing to scale down sanctions on Venezuela to allow Chevron to resume pumping oil there. In exchange, President Nicolas Maduro is set to resume long-suspended talks with the country's opposition to discuss conditions needed to hold free and fair presidential elections in 2024. That's according to the Wall Street Journal.
Which I think is good news, but we'll see how that shakes out. Obviously, it won't be enough oil to make some kind of meaningful short-term difference, but it could, signal to the market in a positive way that I suppose brings down prices potentially.
Yeah, look,
I did fill up yesterday, just in case.
Look, I don't know. I wish we could have a conversation that didn't peg that when we're talking about all these global consequences, whether it's a supply chain crisis, whether it's these kind of international policy machinations that are affecting prices at the pump. We all know that it's not the Biden administration, the Trump administration, any political party that's largely responsible for all of these things. So I would hope that in this moment we can actually start moving away from the framing of Biden is going to hurt in the polls. Biden is going to hurt. People are going to look down on Biden because of whatever happens with oil prices. I know that that's a fool's errand, and it's not going to change.
No, maybe November 9th we can
right?
we can put that aside.
It's just so frustrating when we see all of the context laid bare in front of us.
All right, we'll be back with more Rising right after this. Thank you for sticking with us, and stick with us for our next segment, please. See you soon.